Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the football podcast, and we're all here and we're all talking football. It's games from last week to review, games from this week to preview, any sort of news, and anything light-hearted that we can find in the football world. While I've got you, before we get going, if I can ask you to consider subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, that would be amazing. It would mean the world to us. And yeah, that's that. So let's get cracking. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the football podcast.
Recording in progress.
Paul, it's over to you.
Certainly is. Thank you, Andrew. Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen. You joined us on a momentous week on the football podcast. We'll get to the reason why later on, but needless to say, I'm a very happy bunny. So make of that what you will at this early juncture in the podcast. But whilst we're on the subject, why don't we dive straight into last week's results? One of which I can't wait to get.
You say you're a happy bunny. I imagine I can change that.
50-50.
We could always talk about Barnsley versus Middlesbrough.
Bloody I'd forgotten about that. I'd forgotten there was championship games to discuss.
I don't want to foreshadow anything, but we all knew that Middlesbrough were going to comfortably win this game. Some of us even thought it was going to be 3-0. So what happened in the Barnsley-Middlesbrough game?
To be fair, at one point it was 3-0. It was just 3-0 to the home team. Yes, sadly Middlesbrough conspired to manage to find themselves 3-0 down after about 60 minutes of the game. Did eventually manage to get 2 goals back to make it a nervy last couple of minutes, but they sadly weren't able to get the equaliser and lost 3-2.
Do you have the goal scorers, or would you like me to tell you them?
I know that some guy... Oh, there we go. Mads Anderson and a Amin Bassi brace for Barnsley. The Middlesbrough goals were a Andraz Sporar penalty and an own goal by Liam Kitching, which I believe at the time was being credited to Dale Fry, and then they realised, no, that would mean he'd scored twice in a season and we'll just have to take that off him because he's not allowed to do that. So yeah, not an ideal start to the week, sadly.
No, it's not, because everybody on the podcast had Middlesbrough down to win. Some comfortably, others... let's just say that some of us are lucky that we like to put Sporar down for a goal, because Stu, Matt and myself all predicted Sporar to score. So point each there. Unfortunately, Paul, you're off to a slow start. No points for you, sir.
I've already beaten my points from last week, so I'm happy already.
I'm pretty sure that the next game is one that would interest you, Stuart. But let's let the resident Nottingham Forest fan talk about Nottingham Forest versus Bristol City. Matt?
Well, Forest kind of according to reports and stuff like that, Forest got back to form and pulled out a 2-0 win, which again is considering Bristol City, I think kind of last time I checked, they're still in the top half of the table. Nope. Got that wrong. Obviously, they've been on a bit of a bad run of form, but kind of a good team early on. So yeah, they've got kind of back to winning ways with goals from Brennan Johnson and James Garner.
There he is, up there in the corner. Look at him. I think we'll do this in a little bit of a strange order. Paul, you had a draw.
Classic.
And you didn't pick either of the goal scorers.
Didn't it come out that this was like Johnson's like 5th goal in 6 home games or something ridiculous like that, or just 5th goal in 6 games?
I think unfortunately my kind of my opinion of it was been tainted when they had the run of like they were on telly quite quickly in succession, and he was the most selfish player on the pitch, and he couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo kind of thing, and I was like no way, the kind of thing, and then all of a sudden he's like gone on this scoring spree, and I'm like, well, this is bollocks kind of thing. This is going against my narrative that I was weaving. Never mind.
Matt, we'll come to you next because you also predicted a draw. But some would say lucky, some would say skillfully. You had Johnson down as one of the 4 goals you predicted, so a point there for you, sir. And at this point, I don't know which to do next. Do we talk about Stu nearly getting the correct score, having Forest down to win, getting a point? Do we talk about the fact that he predicted not one, but both goal scorers to take 3 points out of the game? Or do we talk about the fact that I predicted Johnson to score, but I also predicted Nottingham Forest 2-0?
Ooh.
So there's 3 points there as well.
Excellent.
Speaking of Hull City, loosely, Peterborough United versus Hull City. Anything interesting happen in this game, Stu?
Well, as we covered last week, Peterborough's new manager, our old manager, was his first game in charge and proceeded to stand on the sideline and have his pants pulled clean down. So, figuratively, not literally, ladies and gentlemen. So, Hull City decided to not only turn up for the game, but actually managed to play pretty well. And ran out 3-0 winners away at Peterborough. So Tyler Smith scored on 25 minutes, and I'm going to be hearing some points surely from somewhere on the podcast because Keane Lewis Potter scored twice.
Paul had this down as a draw. And didn't pick either of the goal scorers.
It's not been a good week, really, has it, for me so far?
I don't know. There's another game yet to cover. I'm sure that might.
I know.
Stu, you had Peterborough down to win, and in turn picked a Peterborough goal scorer.
I'm still happy.
Matt, you followed in Paul's shoes, almost identical, with a 1-1 draw and one of the same goal scorers. The other one didn't score either. I had Hull City down to win. Point. I had Lewis Potter down to score. Two points. So far for the week, Paul, you are on 0 points. Coming up third is Matthew with 2 points. Stuart Woodmansey romping down the field on 4. And I've got 6 points so far.
He's doing it again. It's happening again. Happening again.
It's not happening again. Because there's another game. And that game is going to change everything.
The world.
Because Middlesbrough went up against Tottenham Hotspur in FA Cup flavoured football. Now, I may have lost money on this game, but Paul, did Middlesbrough win in penalties to win me some money?
They did not, sadly.
They did not.
The game did go to extra time, however.
It did.
Yes, obviously this is the same format that the FA Cup games had from last season. When we were in the throes of the global pandemic, where all games were settled in a one-tie basis, so no extra time, no replays, just extra time, and if required, penalties. So obviously, in the previous round, they managed to come through the game against Man United at Old Trafford on penalties. This game against Tottenham, very similar, although in another way, it was completely the opposite of the Man United game, whereas probably the most one-sided game where the team that progressed probably was definitely the worst of the two sides. This one was the complete opposite of that. In the first half, it was very even, and then from about the 50th minute onwards, Middlesbrough were the only team in it really, apart from a couple of breakaway sort of on the counter attack chances that Chelsea had. But Chelsea, I'm watching the Chelsea game now. Tottenham had, and a very un-Premier League-like performance from Spurs, really.
Isn't that just usual for them though by now?
Well, yeah. I think unfortunately for Spurs fans this season, they've been very 50-50. You get games where they're either really good and they're scoring 3 goals within the first 25 minutes at Leeds, or you go for 120 minutes and you can't score against a Championship side, which was the case as Middlesbrough ran out 1-0 winners after extra time, with a goal scored by 19-year-old Josh Coburn. And if you could see his face, oh my, what a picture.
Lovely stuff. Paul, you had Tottenham down to win. Your Middlesbrough goal scorer was not Coburn. Stu, you had Tottenham down to win even more. Your Middlesbrough goal scorer was not Coburn. Matt, you joined Paul with a 2-1 to the Borough. Your Middlesbrough goal scorer was not Coburn. How are we doing the in 90 minutes scoring?
Well, technically it was 0-0. So I suppose if you'd put a draw down, you'd technically be correct, but then you'd have had to pick a result for the extra time penalty. I don't know why. What have you put?
I put Middlesbrough 1-0.
I mean, considering that no one can catch you anyway, just give yourself 2 points, lad.
Yeah, agreed.
Lovely stuff. So,
you don't want to top it off by saying you had Coburn to score the winner, do you?
I didn't have Coburn. So so that is the week with a possible extra 2 points. It would be me taking a win there. 2 to Matt, 4 to Stu, either 6 or 8 to me, and Paul is okay, everybody. Paul is okay. So, Paul, what now?
Well, we've got a fair few games to predict, including a game I thought was this week, based on the fact that it's FA Cup week, but that game isn't actually until Monday, which is strange. Does that mean that Forest don't have a game? Oh no, they're playing on Friday, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's why. So technically, even though it's FA Cup week, did they say why? It was
FA Cup fortnight. God knows. The infinite wisdom of the FA. The dictatorships that come down from television. Sky wanting to be, obviously it's got nothing to do with Sky because they don't own the rights. But no doubt they'd find some way of kind of.
You say that, but the game on Friday, is that on TV? And
So
is that Sky then being like, well, we've paid for this many games and we need this game on our TV channel, so kind of screwing with the fixture list a bit.
Well, it serves them right for not believing in Forest then. Screw that.
Well, yeah, it's just irritating in the
they
fact
should have
that
known we were going to make it to the 5th round of the Cup because, we do that every year. We've definitely shown the form for it.
it's just irritating in the fact that obviously Borough have played their cup game, and then Forest will play a league game, and then Borough will play a league game, and then Forest will play their cup game. It's just weird. It's just in a really odd sort of format.
I presume it must be so they can get their games on the box.
I would imagine so.
Because last night there was, I can't comment on BT Sport because I didn't check, but you had the Borough game on BBC One. You had
it's just
Man
BBC
City
and ITV was the Man City game, yeah.
Yeah, so you had 2 games on there, and then obviously there's a match on tonight. So obviously I don't know what the rights are in terms of showing TV, like showing the games on TV. But like Everton, Borough, what is Tuesday?
Thursday. That's tomorrow night.
Tomorrow. But I presume it must be to get the matches on TV.
I think so.
And then possibly Sky have come down and said, "Well, don't be fucking with our televised matches as well." Don't worry. Everybody will watch whatever terrible Premier League game you've served up for us. Watford against Crystal Palace or something like that. The viewing figures will be terrible. But all right, don't mess with it.
It's all right. If we're really, really fortunate, we might get something like, I don't know, Burnley, Brighton or something like that. Jesus Christ. Obviously, the listening and viewing figures have just taken a huge nosedive in both Brighton and Burnley. Oh well, never mind. Better luck next time.
And supporters of Crystal Palace as well. So
But yes, let's go through the next set of games, which I believe would start with the aforementioned Friday night fixture between Nottingham Forest and insert team name here that I've forgotten.
Sheffield United.
That's the one.
Yes, Sheffield United versus Nottingham Forest. Matt, as it's your team, you'll pick last, allowing you the opportunity to pick up tips and hints from elsewhere around the podcast.
I think it's summed up as steal points, isn't it?
If that's how you want to refer to it, Stu, that's how you can do that. Seeing as you've decided to chip in, why don't you give us your prediction first?
Okay, there is quite a theme to my predictions this week. So we will start with a Sheffield United 1, Nottingham Forest 1. And I've gone for Johnson to continue his good form for Forest. Somebody's got to pick up them 60 goals from somewhere. And McBurney for Sheffield United.
Okay. You said that you've gone with a theme this week, Stu. I have also gone with a theme this week. I'm sure it'll all become clear quite quickly. I have got Nottingham Forest 2, Sheffield United 0, and until my luck runs out, I will keep predicting Johnson and Zinkernagel. So those are the goal scorers. Paul.
I was concerned there because I thought I heard Stu say the name Ollie McBurney, and I just presumed that he'd gone into some sort of self-imposed retirement, as I'm almost certain I haven't heard his name in any sort of realm of goal-scoring situation all season for Sheffield United. You can pretty much nail on that he will definitely score now because I've said that.
Thank you.
But I would not like to go for Mr. McBurney to score. I will, however, go for Billy Sharp and Ndiaye to score in a 2-1 Sheffield United win.
Your Forest goal scorer.
Too easy to say Johnson, isn't it? So I'll go for Davis.
Okay. Matt, how's this one really going to go?
I am unfortunately going to agree with Mr. Paul Williams. I've gone for a 2-1 Sheffield United win. I have Billy Sharp scoring because he played for Forest.
Okay.
I also have Gibbs White scoring for Sheffield United. And because I don't want to be too similar to Paul, I'll pick Surridge to get his first goal for Forest. Even though he looks like runs around like a chicken with his head cut off. I've never seen anything like it. Actual quote from Fathermore kind of thing.
Excellent. I didn't realise that Maiden was back in the squad.
I mean, so speaking of chickens with their head cut off, that would be, yeah.
Also, dawned on me, we haven't heard Lolly's name for absolute ages.
I can't quite work out what's going on with him. I don't know if he's injured, coming back from an injury. He's had this long-term hamstring problem that's just he can't seem to shake. It doesn't happen very often when if a manager just goes, yeah, he's dog shit. But apparently Steve Cooper gave an interview the other day and was very, very complimentary about him and said how hard he is training in training, but he just can't get a look in the side at the moment. They're very, contrary to the recent results, apart from the Bristol City game, it's quite a strong squad at the moment. Kind of think he says there's been a barrage of injuries before us, but yeah.
Okay. Our next game of the week is Hull City going up against the Women's Basketball Association, also known as West Bromwich Albion. Stu, you will pick last. I think I'm going to go first. Just a little 1-0 for Hull here. And as soon as he seems to have dialed his eye back in, old KLP, Lewis Potter is going to get that goal. Paul.
Now, you see, Andrew, what you've done is you've fallen the trap there. You've failed to realise that even though West Brom have only scored 1 in 7 games, that 1 was scored against my team. So apparently, Steve Bruce has adopted a principle of West Brom will score, but they'll only ever score against teams that are involved on this podcast. Therefore, it will be a 1-1 draw. Sorry, Matt, do you want me to change my mind?
You're plucking them out of the air right now. that and actually did some research. So I just tell you who my goal scorers were, and you can have them as well. Yeah, I mean,
well, hang on, because I'm going to go for Smith for Hull. I can't think what his name is. Double-barreled. Carlin Grant for West Brom.
Okay, so Matt, was that 1-1 with Smith and...
It is 1-1. But I've gone with Fours and Molumby. Because I genuinely looked to see who the last goal scorer was for West Bromwich Albion. And there's a big load of bagels next to their name if you look at their recent fixtures, apart from the Middlesbrough game.
Come on, Stu. Let's hear it.
Well, after all the grumbling about stealing predictions, I also have 1-1. And I also have Fours for the Hull goal. But I do need to check something with the footballing oracle as Mr. Williams, in the sense of I had a little look through the scores app that we look at, and apparently Andy Carroll's name was down on the West Brom team sheet these days. So of course he's going to score. So I've got Andy Carroll for West Brom.
Yeah,
And
he was only on a short-term contract at Reading, and it expired. And apparently, they offered him a new deal. And West Brom thought, should we just offer him, I don't know, a Twix a week more to see if he'll come and play for us? And he did.
well, I suppose it's a little bit closer to the motherland for him, isn't it? A little bit. But also as well, we shouldn't sort of gloss over the fact that we'll probably all be wrong in the sense of that Bruce, when he went there to manage, probably now wishes that he had become a manager of the Women's Basketball Association, because their fortunes have not turned around. And as he's coming back, really for the send-off that he never had from Hull, chances are they'll probably win like something stupid like 4-0. So
4-0.
So no, I mean West Brom, not us. So yeah, I'm optimistically going with a 1-1 draw. So there we go.
On the topic of fours, you know, like how certain teams play music whenever like a goal goes in. For a season or two, Pools did this thing where they had specific songs for players who scored. So when they had James Brown, they actually played the "I Feel Good." Like Jeff Stelling had the little doll that danced. So do you reckon if Hull were going to start doing it, they could play the "Can You Feel the Force" when he scores?
I mean, no is the absolute answer to that question. This might be stepping on toes. It might even be stepping on toes in this podcast. I'm not so sure, but I am a firm believer in the fact that goal music is only played in grounds that have no atmosphere anyway.
So it would make a perfect idea to have it at the KCOM then, or the NKM, sorry.
I don't know, Paul, because I shall find out once again when we take in a live game in a couple of weeks' time. So, but more on that later.
Well, what I would be saying right now is let's talk Middlesbrough football, but instead what I'm going to be saying is let's have a short, tiny, wee, insignificant break and then come back fresh, refreshed, ready to predict Middlesbrough football, or for some, Luton Town football. We will find out shortly. 2 ticks.
Recording in progress.
And just like that, they were back, even though I dropped a pen on the floor. That all got real loud, real fast. So, Middlesbrough are going up against Luton Town. So, Paul, you will be predicting last. I'm going to go down the list this time. So, Stu, you are next on the list to give us a Middlesbrough Luton Town prediction.
I've gone for Middlesbrough 1, Luton Town 0. And I've got Sporar to score the goal.
Okay. Matt?
I've gone for there'd be not a case of. I have to mention this after watching someone ask Jurgen Klopp if he understood what the After the Lord Mayor's show meant, and the look on his face as if say, English are weird. But there's not going to be a case of this at the Riverdance because the mighty Borough are going to run out 3-1 winners.
Wow.
I'm just going to go for all the favourites. Crooks and Jones and Sporar and then Cornick to score for Luton. That's exactly how it's going to go down.
I put a little bit of scientific reasoning into my prediction for this game because I was working on the principle that Middlesbrough might be a little tired after giving the FA Cup their all, so I've just got them down for a 1-0 win. Crooks to score. Paul?
Well, it's interesting you say that they might be tired, Andrew, as Luton are actually playing, as we speak, in the FA Cup against Chelsea. And they are currently, well, actually, I'm watching it on a bit of a delay. So
Don't jinx it.
I was going to say, I'm 2 minutes in the past. So Chelsea might have already scored. I have no idea. But it's currently 2-1 to Luton.
You're currently 2 minutes in the past. Depending on when people listen to this, it's even further in the past. I feel like the DeLorean is appearing at any second now.
We've basically just inceptioned our own Inception or something like that. So, so I think of the two clubs, you'd imagine that Luton possibly would be the team that would be more on the tired side. Even though they are, at the end of the day, they're professional footballers, and it's a 3-day gap between today and the game. Loads has been made about the fact that Borough are on this run where I think they've won 7 or 8 on the spin at home. And I know I said it last week for the West Brom game where the run has to come to an end at some point, but it does, and Luton are just one of those teams that we just always struggle against. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Okay, what's wrong with that?
Goal scorer wise, I'll go for Watmore for the Borough. And he's already scored tonight, so I'll go for Cornick for Luton.
Okay, so that's what would be considered the week's games kind of in the book. But for a bonus round, for bonus points, we have 2 additional games. Nottingham Forest are taking on Huddersfield Town.
And that's your cup game.
That is your cup game. Personally, I think Forest are going to do exactly what I predicted in the other Forest game. It's going to be 2-0. I did decide to switch it up just a smidge by going Johnson and Garner to get those goals. So just a little bit of a change. I hope I haven't jinxed myself there by stepping away from the Zinkernagel. Paul, let's double down with your prediction and get this one off you.
As it's a cup game, I think we know where I'm going with this. I'll go for a 1-1 draw and Forest to win on penalties.
One 1p. Okay.
Johnson and Karoma for for Huddersfield.
Okay, Stu?
I have also gone for a 1-1 draw. Thank you very much, Paul. However, goal scorer wise is very different. I've gone for Garner and Jordan Rhodes, the slimiest man in football. So I'll go with Forest in extra time, just to make it different to Paul's as well.
So 2-1.
Yeah, but that goal scorer won't count then, will it?
Well, I don't know.
So
I
1-1 90
never know
minutes.
how we're supposed to get these.
But it won't matter by this point, because Andy will have like 15 points by this point.
Matt, tell us how your team is going to do in the Cup.
Well, after beating the 2020 winners in the third round and the 2021 winners in the fourth round, you would have thought that everyone would be really I'd be really confident of Forest going through this round. And I've each time I've picked very heavy defeats for Forest in those rounds, and I'm sticking true to form, because Forest played Huddersfield earlier on in the season and were dog shit against them. So I'm going to go the same. Forest 1, Huddersfield 3.
Okay.
And speaking of dog shit, everyone's favourite shit house, Ryan Yates, to score for Forest.
Okay.
And then Ward, Holmes, and Corona for Huddersfield. Yeah, just think about those halcyon days of staying in your house all the time.
Have you picked Holmes because he's an ex-Ram?
No. Is he the American lad?
Dwayne Holmes, I think it's him.
Yeah. He was a little... Yeah, he got booed against Forest, and when he scored, he cupped his ears to the fans.
Of course he did. Shit out.
Our final game to predict for the week is Sheffield United going up against the mighty Borough. As I feel that there's quite a lot of prediction stealing going on, I'm just going to give you mine first, because, why not? As I said before, I did work on principle that Middlesbrough might be starting to feel the strain of all of the victories that I predict for them. So just a 1-0 to Middlesbrough with Sporar to score the goal. Stu, you are on the list below Paul.
And for the fourth time in 5 predictions on this particular podcast, I'm going for a 1-1 draw.
Okay.
Yep, so Billy Sharp for Sheffield United. And just to hear the collective sigh of relief around Teesside, Balogun is finally going to get off the mark. Although, after that shot that he tried in extra time last night, that then he tried to pass off as a cross, maybe I should rethink that. But we'll stick with it.
Okay, Matt.
I've gone for a 2-1 Borough win.
Okay.
Baldock scoring for Sheffield United. And then Sporar and Watmore scoring for Borough. I do enjoy it when players come in on loan from Premier League clubs and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's got to be mint. And then there's a reason why they're being sent out on loan. And sometimes it's not for them to get experience. It's because they're crap and they want to get them out of the club for as long as possible.
We had that years ago with Mark Noble, and then look how that ended up.
One club man, my ass.
Apparently he was shit for Hull because he got a back injury from sitting in the car from London to Hull. That was
Lovely.
Paul, how's Middlesbrough going to fare in this game?
Yeah, I think you've all made the mistake of forgetting that Borough are shit away from home at the minute. 1-0 Sheffield United win.
Oh.
You've forgotten the rule. Going back to an old club.
Yeah, but yeah, Billy Sharp will score. 1-0 win Sheffield United. Boo.
Boo indeed.
It didn't work for Grant McCann last weekend, Matt.
That's the point.
Or Steve Bruce this weekend, eh?
That is the week's games predicted. Feels weird having 5 games to predict.
Ooh, that's what I was going to say. How far back in the book would you have to go to get to our Christmassy sort of predictions? Because technically this game was supposed to be played on New Year's Day.
United Middlesbrough.
So I wanted to see if we've all picked the exact same prediction or if we've changed it up.
I think I'll have changed. I think things will have changed since then.
I think I went for a Sheffield United win that day as well. I might have gone 2-1. The tenterhooks that we're all on now is palpable.
Look, the tension being created for effectively no points is the.
Well, what I was going to say was, obviously, this being well, if we wanted to, we'd technically have 2 predictions in play. So if we wanted to, we could just have 2 shots here. Basically.
Okay,
You can't
I have located said game. Paul, you predicted a 2-1 Sheffield United win with Sharp scoring both goals for Sheffield United and Watmore scoring for the Borough. Stu, you predicted a 0-1 Middlesbrough win with Howson scoring. Matt followed with Paul, a 2-1 Sheffield United win with Gibbs White and somebody else. Nadej.
Was it Ndaye?
Yes, it was. And Sporar scoring for Borough. So you've almost completely switched.
Yeah.
I went with a Middlesbrough 2-0 win with Sporar and Watmore. So I've dropped a goal and a goal scorer. Maybe we should compare and contrast.
I'm happy to stick with my 1-1 draw until Howson scores, and then I'll want to swap. So.
Seems only fair. That right there is the predicting done. Paul, where to?
I suppose we better cover a little bit of what's happened this week in football, aren't we? So we'll leave the heavy stuff till the end. But the first domestic piece of silverware was settled last weekend. I'd completely forgotten about this on last week's podcast, but so we probably should have done a little bit about the build-up to the game. But it was the League Cup final last Sunday, which was Chelsea versus Liverpool at Wembley. The game finished 0-0 after 90 minutes, 0-0 after 120 minutes, so into a penalty shootout. And the main talking point from the game was the fact that at about 118 minutes, Chelsea took off their keeper that had played the entire game to bring on Kepa Arrizabalaga for the penalty shootout. He then went on to save 0 out of the 11 penalties taken against him. And, of course, he then missed the decisive penalty that he took to hand the game to Liverpool.
I was convinced that when you said, and about 118 penalties later, it was still going.
So, seriously. Unbelievable.
The penalties were awesome. Absolutely. I've never seen,
The best penalty was the one where he tried to psych out Virgil van Dijk and stood ever so slightly to one side and was basically just like pointing at the corner that he was in, just like going, stick it there. So what does Van Dijk do? He just absolutely blasts it exactly where he's told him to put it, and then just basically just stares at him as he's walking away from him. Absolutely beautiful. You gotta love it. It's those perfect moments of shithousery that you just live for in that football sphere.
Everybody would enjoy it more if it didn't result in either team lifting a trophy.
Yeah, I had that feeling. It was almost like no one wins from this because either one of them won't shut up about the fact that they've won a trophy after it happens. So
yeah, but one group of fans particularly bang on about the fact that they won the trophy, and then when watching the coverage, they were like, "Oh, is this like the fact because they didn't get to celebrate the Premier League with their fans because of COVID? Is this the one that they?" I'm like, "Shut up! It's like it's the third layer down in the trophies. If you throw the European Cup in, it's the fourth layer down in the trophy. So they don't really give that much for monkeys." And crying out loud, I was just like, "No."
We were lucky enough to go to the pub for a little bit, and we actually watched the first half in the pub. And Sarah turned to me and said, "What do you want to happen?" Knowing that I don't really have any kind of sort of great, taste for either side. I was like, well, if they could find that massive button that opens up the pitch into the big black hole underneath Wembley, that'd have been the perfect result for me in the end.
But yeah, that was probably the main talking point from the week. I suppose the biggest thing that's come out has happened within the last sort of hour or two, and I think it had come out. Was it during a Chelsea game at the week? No, it can't have been the weekend. It must have been midweek. That it had come out that Roman Abramovich had passed ownership into the trustees or something of the Chelsea Holding Corporation or something like that.
Yeah, it was earlier this week. I think it was after the. I think it might have been after the cup final, but there's a charitable trust, isn't there, that's now in charge of Chelsea football decisions.
Yeah.
But he still owns it. But then it's been said in the last couple of hours that it's been offered for sale to a Swiss billionaire. Obviously, with everything else going on in the world, it's a little bit dodgy because Abramovich is big mates with Vlad. So
Poots.
A sale could actually go through or not, or like. I know there was a little bit of chatter amongst ourselves today about how that could possibly go through. I genuinely don't see how it could happen if it's going to be £1 billion or plus deal for that football club. There's no way that the government will let it pass with the state of the world at the moment, regardless of what form it takes. If it means that there's money going into sort of help a country that's doing what they're doing to another country, I can't, regardless of how it's dressed up, I just can't see it happening.
It's a funny kind of situation because I was listening to something last night and they were talking about the charitable trust because it's got the women's football team head coaches on there and stuff like that. They'd rejected it. They kind of like, oh no, we don't want to do that. Thanks very much. And then raised this kind of significant incident which is like, holy shit, there's something really wrong about this as well. So it fetches in like the government watchdog for charities as well. So that happened yesterday, and then obviously he's said now that he's confirmed just in the last hour or two that he's definitely selling it. And apparently all profits that he gets from selling the club will go to victims of the war, Ukrainian victims of the war. Which, I mean, I'd like to see the receipts for that, if that happens, please. But yeah, I suspect that the problem is, if a sale does go through, it takes a while for it to go through anyway, doesn't it? It's going to be months. It's a months thing as opposed to a days thing.
The due diligence process alone will take upwards of 6 months, you'd imagine, just because of all the sanctions and the fact that I didn't realise this, but he's operating the club at like a massive personal loss to himself. So this is all coming from Sky Sports News. Obviously, it brings the fact that Matt said there. Obviously, he's confirmed he's selling the club with all net proceeds from the sale to be donated to the victims of the war in Ukraine. It goes to sell a bit more, and then it goes on to say Abramovich is owed £1.5 billion by Chelsea after buying the club in a £140 million deal in 2003, but says he will not ask for any of the loans to be repaid. £1.5 billion he's put into that club in the 19 years that he's owned it.
But I mean, to some extent though, like they've not been up. I suppose you can't operate at a loss. And the idea is in financial fair play that you can't operate in a loss. So yeah, he's put that money in, but how much money is taken out? And pure allegation and kind of thingy. What money has gone through that club in the past however many years that probably shouldn't have gone through the club in the past however many years. It's a shifty kind of thing. I mean, I don't want to kind of take it away from the Chelsea thing, but Forest announced today that Marinakis has effectively written off £12 million worth of loans by turning them into equity shares. People when we were talking, I was talking about like the Newcastle takeover, and I was like, hey, if that was me, I don't think I could support that club anymore. And I know that when Marinakis took over Forest, I was like, oh, this, because he's a dodgy guy. And I was like, oh, it doesn't sit well with me at times. And then when somebody's quite willing to, and apparently this is the second time he's done it at Forest, so he's effectively written off £24 million worth of loans as equity and shares. I don't want to comment anymore because I feel like I might be digging myself into a bit of a hole here.
I think the problem is that when you start hearing like the numbers that get thrown around and stuff, you start to think to yourself, well, hang on a second, is this like creative bookkeeping where like Derby have fallen afoul of?
I was going to say it's Uncle Mel at its best, and horrific stuff at worst.
It is worrying. It is very worrying at times. I mean, it's that sort of thing where obviously I know that like both of your clubs are owned by foreign owners and stuff like that, whereas obviously mine's owned by a local businessman who's done well for himself and then been able to get to a point where he's been able to put together a package to save the club from extinction, and then eventually become the majority shareholder or chairman, whatever phrase you want to throw out. But it's that sort of thing where I'm quite happy that my club is owned by a local guy who's sort of got the best interest of the club at heart rather than his own sort of personal gain and things like that.
That's where we fell foul with the Alarm last time round, in the sense of they made their fortune locally, and you'd have thought that would have been kind of a good sign, but the club was never their main focus. Really, it was self-promotion. Ultimately.
I think the problem is I think a lot of businessmen see it as a cash cow. I think they see a lot of the money being thrown towards football in terms of TV deals and stuff like that, and they think, oh, if we're just even like a smidge bit successful, we can take a load of that money, and we know what Mike Ashley does, and it's amusing when it's not your club, but it's kind of it's there's a lot of money to be had out of football, but we could kind of mention of Mike Ashley could smoothly move on towards another week, another Derby saga as they wait as the FA or the EFL wait for confirmation that they're going to have enough money to finish the season to start with, and we'll all get our violins out for Wayne, being as everyone's been so mean to them and nobody wants them in the Championship. Nobody wants us in the Championship next season. Just to let you know, Wayne, it was we didn't want you in the Championship last season or this season, next season, or for many, many seasons onwards.
It's a pretty damning fact when, you mentioned the fact that, oh no, poor old Wayne Rooney, and then immediately the other people on the podcast just have a huge grin appear on their face, as if to sort of say, oh no, what a shame, couldn't have happened to a nicer person, club, set of fans.
The thing is, like, you guys said to me, don't sit on the fence when it comes to Derby, Matt. And to be honest, for a lot of the time, and you guys can confirm this, for a lot of the time as being a Forest fan, I've never been that bothered with Derby. I didn't have a massive problem with them. My problem with Derby has been the past 3-4 years, as they've kind of dodgy dealt their way around the league and generally been cocky and arrogant and stuff like that.
They've effectively cheated. That is the bottom line. Like, the whole setup is there to sort of eradicate, the cheating element of it, and they've got what they really asked for, really, in that regard, and you can't.
It's like the naughty school kid who gets caught doing something wrong and then cries because they got into trouble. And you're like, well, you did something wrong.
That is exactly what it boils down to, isn't it? It's that case of the financial fair play rules are there to stop clubs from falling into a situation like they're in now. Derby disregarded those rules to see if they could get a competitive edge, and it backfired spectacularly. Something I did see that was quite funny yesterday was about they played Cardiff in the league and they lost 1-0. The goal scorer was Uche Ikpeatu, a name people will be familiar with from this podcast, and it was summed up perfectly that in a game between Cardiff and Derby, that an ex-Wickham footballer on loan to Cardiff from Middlesbrough scored the goal that caused Derby to lose a game, and basically the script could not have written itself better than that whole situation that played out. And you'd like to think that basically after he scored, he just tried to find as many of the Derby fans as possible, and just went up and was like,
"Oh, lads, do you want a picture? Autograph?"
There's got to be that person somewhere as well that's like thought about that beforehand, had a quick check on the odds and gone, it's worth a quid.
Oh.
Surely.
Stupendous.
We've not talked about the most important news item of the week as yet. Other than my glancing remark earlier, Paul mentioned the Hull City owners. They've reduced the ticket prices for a game again in the near future, so they're trying to get fans back to the ground, which is incredible. So the tickets for the home game against Luton on the 19th of March, they're doing kids for £2, or if you go as a guest of a pass holder, you can go for £2 as well. So been the true Yorkshireman that I am. Yeah, we're taking the boys to that game, so it's costing me £4 to take both of them there. However, it is full price for the adult tickets for us. So, but still, we're getting to go to a live game. And if anybody out there is listening to this that is a Hull City fan, get yourself down. See if we get the West Stand open again, and not embarrass ourselves with the size of the ground for the team any longer.
Sounds good.
Well, I'd say that's pretty much all the news and stuff covered for the week. So as we've taken to doing recently, we'll try and end with a little bit of a lighter note. So there's a couple of things that have come up. One of which was actually raised by the podcast host himself, Mr. Cook. I don't know if you've still got that clip to the link to the clip. I've got it open if you don't, but it's up to you. I can just put it on the screen for people to enjoy and watch if they'd like.
I mean, if you've got it there, it'll take me a second to find it. So if you've got it there, feel free to.
I'm sure we can share it on the social medias anyway.
Yeah, we'll share it on the socials. But so there's what it says.
Does.
And there we go. Oh, go on, lad. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Lovely. So that is just a video of, as it says, a step in one of the stands at Reading that is obviously, it must be, like a millimetre or something off as to the sort of the standard height for the steps. And obviously everyone's been caught out by it. And the person who must sit in that seat has thought, oh, there's money to be made here. And let's just sort of set their camera to record the poor saps who are just carrying somewhere. The one that like will always get me is the fact that there's probably some poor bastard who's got a couple of cups of coffee or, you know, a hot dog or a burger or something that he's just bought at half time.
And it's probably cost him about 15 quid for two coffees and a burger. But ever since you told me about that, the only thing I can think of now is about getting down to Hull to test the same theory, because the stadium designs are exactly the same. So have they done it in such a way that there's one wrong step in Hull as well?
It's more than likely. Obviously, if you know of a dodgy step at your local team stadium, get it on the socials. Get it filmed and send it in to us, and you could win 250 pence. I don't know, something like that.
250 pence.
Pence, yes, 250. You know what? I think I'd rather give him 250 pence, because 250 pence would probably cost a lot more. So, and to finish, this is something that we didn't actually have. We didn't have time for it in the end last week, as we were coming to the end of our scheduled recording time. But so I've saved it for this week. It's another good news story. It's something that's you know, a little bit of good in the world and stuff like that. So, Omar El Abdellaoui complete miracle return to football after firework incident. Galatasaray defender Omar El Abdellaoui completed a miraculous return to football on Monday, 14 months after his career appeared to be over, when a firework exploded in his face. El Abdellaoui was 30, was left clinically blind following the incident which happened in New Year's Eve in 2020. The Norway international's right eye was left severely damaged, and there were fears that he'd never regain his sight, let alone return to professional football. I think he came on in the second half of the Galatasaray game. Yeah, on Monday there were emotional scenes when he played the full 90 minutes in Galatasaray's dramatic 3-2 win over Göztepe. So there you go.
That's even more impressive that he's back in top flight football as well. It's not
absolutely
impressive. Would have been impressive if he was lower down, or
like semi-pro or something like that. But
yeah,
the fact that he's in at the top level is incredible. Obviously, obviously it's just nice that obviously that's something that that's happened in the world. But it ties it into the podcast nicely, because we actually believe that he used to play for Hull. Actually, I don't know how long ago it was, but I think we actually asked Stuart about this, and he doesn't recall seeing him play.
It was in the dark period, I believe, when I had a bit of a falling out with the pricing structure and the ethics of the owners at the time, shall we say?
Yeah. So I had a quick look. He was only ever on loan, and it was in 2017. Was that when they were in? Is that the season that were in the Premier League?
It had been when after the army scored to put them up, didn't they? So yeah, it was within the time period. I definitely wasn't attending regularly. this 2017. If it was 2017, 2018, that was the first season down again.
Right.
So, but no,
it's obviously nice to hear that he's obviously had to go through all these different surgeries and he's managed to regain his sight and even he's able to play.
I think hasn't there been some sort of almost like medical engineering assist as well, because he's got like special glasses to wear, doesn't he?
A bit similar to when Edgar Davids had to wear them because of his glaucoma, I think.
I was just assumed that it was because he was colourblind, and it took me ages to work out that like it wouldn't really matter if he was wearing yellow glasses to that, because he wouldn't know what colour they were anyway.
Well, no.
So yeah, but it's cool. Like you'd like to hear stuff about that, and like especially as well. That also seemed to fall in the week that Christian Eriksen made his return as well, didn't it? To when he got brought on after his cardiac arrest during the Euros last time.
That is something I'd forgotten, actually. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So yeah, but I think that's about it, isn't it?
Lovely stuff.
All I've got.
Right, well,
me too.
There we go. Thank you all for joining me and taking these lovely people through the sometimes murky world of the football world. We will be back next week, kind of same time, kind of same channel. But yes, we'll be back to review the games that we predicted and no doubt predict even more football. Until then, I'm going to say goodbye to these guys. I'm going to say goodbye to you, and we will see you then. Bye bye. So there you go, what do you think to that? Another one done, another week of games gone, another week of games to look forward to, and something light-hearted to finish the week on. Thank you for listening, or indeed watching, but while I've got you, and just before we go, if I could ask you to please consider subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, because that would be awesome. Also, you can jump over to thecookiecast.com. We've got social media links, email links. You can drop us a line, get in touch with us, let us know how you're getting on. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.